and welcome to another episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. Today, I am so excited to have a new guest to the show. She's not new to me, but she is new to the show. You would know her on Instagram as That African Butterfly. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Nyemade Baywu, to the show.
Hey guys, hello.
I am so grateful you're here. So, for those who don't know you, can you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience? Because you do a lot of different things. You wear a lot of different hats. And one of them is a Bravo lover and a mental health advocate, which is why you're here. And today we're going to talk all sorts of Bravo. But could you share with everybody a little bit about what it is you do?
So as she mentioned, my name is Nyemade, or That African Butterfly, on social media. I do a lot of different things. I'm an entrepreneur, so I work for myself, and it also means that I do a lot of different things to make it all work. I mostly work in social media. I do content creating for myself. On my page, I talk about like mental health, self-confidence, and I'm just silly. I've really leaned into, especially with the world being crazy. Lately, I've really leaned into my silly because I need some joy. And then over like on TikTok, I'm obsessed with BTS, the band. It's a new thing, but like it's all I talk about over there. But I also do content creating for other people. So I have a few businesses that I manage their social media page. I have a couple that I just consult with on what they should do and put together their like strategy plan, content calendar, stuff like that. And I love doing that. I also do some stuff in production, which I love. I started out by producing stuff for myself, which I still do, but I really love when I can work with teams and I'm just on the side where I'm like creating the questions, doing the pre-interview with the guest. I love that. So I do production and then I do some writing as well. Not as much as I should. I need to get more into that. But I also do some writing as well. So,
Girl, don't should yourself. You know, shooting all over yourself is rarely a good thing. No, I used to say that in therapy with clients because those shoulds, man, I mean, they can get to us. Because here's the thing, what you just described is more than I've done in a lifetime. That's a lot of things. So, give yourself some grace. If people wanted to get in touch with you to talk about some of your services, would they just hit you up at That African Butterfly on Instagram? Or is it the same?
It is. I try to keep it consistently. That's why it's that instead of the, because the was taken on some of them. So I became That African Butterfly on all of them. But yeah, you can email That African Butterfly at Gmail, or the website is That African Butterfly, TikTok and Instagram. I'm always in my DMs. It's literally the fastest way to reach me, unfortunately, because I have no life. But I say, I guess the great thing about working in social media is like, I have to be on social media for work. So it's not like I scroll through TikTok for research purposes. That's why I spend so much time.
Sure. Wink, wink, nod, nod. So for me, I was born in 81. So in April, I'm going to be 45. And I was like that last generation to grow up really like with some technology, but really without it. And as a result, I am not great at social media. But what I will notice, and I was never a huge fan of it, like in my adult life, it just wasn't part of my thing. But now that it's part of literally like for this job, I do find myself, I feel like a teenager where I'm like getting sucked into it. And then I'm like, oh, Melissa, you need to close this, back it out. And there is like, I'm experiencing now for the first time what a lot of research shows and talks about is how all consuming it can be, especially with the way that the world is right now, which is on fire. All of our algorithms are
it's wild.
It's wild out there. So I also think it's a good note for me that like social media can be such a beautiful thing and you use it for what you want to use it for. And then you back out and get out, especially for me. Because do you notice with mental health, like for me, I notice when I'm on there a lot, my mental health definitely suffers a little bit. Do you notice that as well?
I mean, it really depends on what I'm taking in. And that's why I've really I try to keep my TikTok very BTS and happy because I don't know if you've probably seen the meme or the reel where it's like I'm between trying to keep my sanity and trying to know what's going on. And I feel like I'm constantly in that spot, especially with Instagram, because they'll literally be like, this terrible thing is happening in the world. And then a reality show thing. And then look at me with my cats. And it's just like, wow. So it's like just a constant back and forth, which is good because it helps to like regulate a little bit, but it's also bad because I'm on like an emotional roller coaster. So for me, it's important to like have times where I just step away, or I'm like, that's go touch some grass, like let's get away from it. And then also to have like pockets of like pure happiness. So like for me, that's over in my BTS world, which I used to be like, oh my God, you're a grown adult, stop that. But I feel like men never say sorry for being obsessed with their sports teams. Like they have their team people they love, they have their favorite players, they have like all the things, and they never say sorry for their thing. So like BTS is my thing. And it's just fun because it gives me like a happy outlet, where I'm with other people and we're all just talking about like
Yeah.
stupid, silly stuff. And like Army gets a bad rep as being like this crazy fandom. But really, we're all very aware of our delusions and it's all very fun. Like once you get into it, you realize like it's just a giant inside joke to us. Like we're all just literally just having fun. And I love a good community feeling. Like, do you remember when it felt like everyone was obsessed with Game of Thrones and
Yeah.
like it was all people were talking about? It's like that with Army all
Yes.
the time, but like I love it because it's like instantly like, oh, you're Army rep. I mean, there are some outliers, but for the most part, it's just like happy, fun people. And so it's a good time. And I think that's important is to figure out like your pockets of happiness and escape to them.
Amen. Preach, because in this world, with the way things are, to find our joy and pockets of happiness, like you said, it's
It is.
literally life-saving. It's so, so, so important. So, and I'm not a believer in like, as an adult, whatever makes you happy. Like people make fun of Disney adults and I'm like, why? Why are you mad? Here's what I don't understand. Why do people get mad about things other people do that have
That part.
nothing to do with them? Doesn't impact them, we're not saying anyone has to like BTS or be a Disney adult, whatever it is. Just like let people
Yeah,
have their
I
their
agree.
joyful moments. So good for you in finding your joyful moments. And which is what brings us back here today, because some of our joyful
Yeah.
moments are
Well, and I was
Bravo,
gonna say
baby.
that like Bravo was one of them for me. And at first I was like, I love this Bravo world with all my Bravo friends, but like, whoa, did it get toxic real fast? I was like, oh, this is like the way how with Army we're all in on the inside joke. Like we all recognize like they're a band, but they're also people, and we all joke around. Like in Bravo, for some reason, it feels like that line is not defined, or it's like defined in a weird way where they get that they're real people, but also don't think them of them as real people, and then they get like people are fighting, and it's Bravo fandom can be a lot, and I had to step away from it more than I would have liked to for my sanity.
And listen, I think that speaks volumes because I totally think you're right. For me, there are certain things that come up that you see them and you're like, has the Bravo fandom lost their mind? Like, what is going on? And I do think, to your point, the biggest thing sometimes people forget is these aren't characters. These are humans that we don't know. There's production, there's editing. I try to focus on all I can control is my little
Yeah,
corner of the internet, right? My page, Your Bish Therapist. And what I love about my page is the community, the sense of like, intellectual curiosity and empathy and understanding. I feel like I don't know how it happened, but for me, my
it
page
is.
is like a safe haven for me and for other people because you can comment there and you're not going to get ripped apart. And if people do comment really nasty things, the community
Mhm.
cleans them up real quick, which I have
Yeah,
never felt
yeah,
prouder of either. Because not even in nasty ways, right? But I like to find the pockets of people who still understand that these are humans, they're not characters, we're team humanity. We may be a little shady, have a kiki, whatever, but at the end of the day, we just have to maintain our humanity and keep it fun. This is all summer's
right.
supposed to be fun.
Yeah,
Bravo's supposed to be fun. It's all
yeah,
supposed to be fun. Isn't that a great segue into today? We're going to talk about Summer House. We're also going to talk about Real Housewives of Potomac reunion because I know you had some thoughts on Stacey. I definitely have some thoughts on Stacey. And then maybe a little bit of Southern charm at the end. So, since summer's supposed to be fun
yeah.
and wah wah,
Whoa,
unfortunately, this
it's
season
fun in a different way. It's fun in it's like a
it,
train wreck way.
yeah. For me doing what I do, Summer House is literally perfect for me. I have been able to basically we're watching Kyle and Amanda's relationship just deteriorate. We now know that Kyle and Amanda are divorcing, which I think it's good for both of them. But for my purposes, I'm watching it and I'm like, I could write a clinical dissertation on this, which literally, for those who follow me, that's basically what I do. I watch the show and I basically write a small paper. And I give it away for free, and people still don't follow me or do anything. And it's just like, that's social media. But so to your point, it's like, it is so dark and sad because it's like, I know it's better for them to be apart, but I don't know. Like for me, I feel like Kyle and Amanda, they really have real love. It's always sad to see two people who had real love have to go their separate ways. There's grief in that. That's devastating. But please,
I agree, because the thing is, I've always been team Kyle and Amanda. Like, even when they were going through crap, like I could always tell they had a friendship behind their relationship, right? And I think that there's important because there's a lot of couples you see and you can tell like they're a couple, but they're not really like buddies. Like Kyle and Amanda gave off buddies who loved each other, which I think is like peak for finding a relationship. So I found, because the reason why I have thoughts about it, because I was watching an episode the other day and I was just like so angry with Kyle. And I'm like, why am I this angry? I don't know these people. I don't care. But I realized it's because like I was so invested in their relationship in the sense of like, I thought that they would work even when they were dealing with their nonsense. And also when the thing with Kyle is it gives me another hot topic, a Tyra. Kyle gives me the Tyra, we were all rooting for you moment. Because like Kyle is actually, from what we've seen, like a decent guy. Like he's not perfect, none of them are. But like from what we've seen, he's like a decent guy. And it's like, if you would grow the F up, you guys would be fine. It's his refusal to grow up. And it's this whole, we're watching him 10 years later be the same person he was 10 years ago with like out the growth and without the change. And Amanda's like, I've had enough. And we're all like, we're with you, girl. We get it. And he is still seems to not see it and still seems to not understand it and still seems to not get why he's a problem and like why his actions are an issue. Like when your spouse says that they feel unaccomplished and that they feel like they don't have anything going for them and they've given up their career to work for you, the next step is not to start another career doing the exact thing that person hates. The next step is to support your partner in building something for herself. Instead, he switches to this thing and doesn't get why she's upset. And I'm sure they have problems outside of that as well. And I'm sure some of his concerns are valid. I think we've all, especially as someone who deals with depression myself, I know what it's like on the Amanda side of thing and how that can be hard to live with. Like, I get it too. But also, we're not really seeing him make an effort because, like, if he, and I don't know if she said, I think she said it, or maybe someone said it to her, but it's like, if he won't change for her, why would he change when they have kids? Like, that's what she would have to bank on at this point. Like, all of these years they've been together, he's never changed, and he's talking about wanting a family. She should have a family with him and hope he changes, even though he's shown that he hasn't. And no offense to the younger ladies, but this is why men like younger girls, because when you're young, you're still in that mood. Because I remember I was in it with an ex where I was like, he'll change, he'll get better. Like, and when you get older, you're like, no, either you will or you won't, and I'm out. And Amanda's like, I'm out. And it's definitely, I think, the right decision for her based on the limited things that we have seen. But it is frustrating because I do think that they did have a great relationship. So it is, which I know some people laugh at, like, oh, they do this argue bigger. But I could see, not to be like I could see behind that, but I could see like the relationship underneath all of that stuff. And literally it was like the cheating and partying. If he would, like I said, just grow up, I feel like they would have continued on and had a great relationship, unfortunately. But
right. And you know, I agree with everything you said. And the saddest thing to me was with the last episode we watched, at the end of it, she said in this very resigned voice, I really love Kyle. Like, we're really friends. It was something like, but I just don't know how much longer I can do this. And I think that people, it's so easy to be, I guess, what they call like a Monday morning quarterback or like an armchair therapist or armchair, whatever it is. But like, Amanda and Kyle's relationship maybe was certainly never perfect. It was certainly never maybe what most people would want. But for them, they had a kinship. They had a closeness. And we also can't forget that the Summer House crew, that in and of itself is this like sociological group that also help them feel so together. And I'm sure it's weird for them both. Like, how do we proceed with Summer House without the other one? Or it just like completely shifts the whole group. But I think that for me, when I watch Kyle and Amanda, it's like the most important things that it frustrates me is that Kyle likes to blame a lot of stuff on Amanda. And for me, that's an easy, an easy identifier in terms of like, it wouldn't be easy if it was all Amanda's fault, right? Because then he doesn't have to make those changes. I think that Kyle is kind of like, he's 43 years old. He has a failing business. He's on Summer House, which is like, he's the oldest one in the crew. I think he's feeling like I'm lost and I don't know what I'm doing. And instead of looking at some of that, he wants to just like blame Amanda for his troubles. And all humans, I'm going to be honest, all humans, we get in our own way all the time. And I think what makes the difference between someone who can like own their stuff and someone who doesn't is being able to identify, oh, my bad. Here's how I got in my own way. And so, you said one interesting thing about depression, and I appreciate you sharing about that because I always talk on here about my struggles with depression and complex PTSD. And the one thing that really bugged me is when he talked about Amanda, like the apartment being so disgusting that he had to call her mom. Because for me, like one of the things that is a symptom of depression is not being able to properly care for like yourself or your space, right? Like Frankie Taylor Paul, in fact, recently posted a reel where it showed like her home just being like a disaster because that's what happens when her depression spikes. And I appreciated, right. And same for me too. Like the cleaning in the organization just goes to complete hell because I don't have the bandwidth for it. What pisses me off is there's being angry at your partner, but then Kyle's willingness to denigrate her literal character. Yeah. That's what really bothers me with that. But also when they were like in the apology cove at the beach, it is funny that they call it that because that's where everyone goes to have those convos. But when he's yelling at her about like, you have no personality, you know this, you know that, I'm like, sir, you do not love this woman. You are what I call him on the show as a king baby. Have you ever heard that term?
I think I don't know if I heard it from you, but I've heard it before. Yeah.
Maybe. But we talk about king babies here because it's like he's like throwing this literal tantrum because he wants it so badly not to be him who needs to change, which is one thing. But then when it crosses over into denigrating this woman's character, no, sir, sit down. I won't have it. And that's why I clinically read Kyle for Phil.
Yeah, that's where he loses me. That's where and I used to be more of a Kyle apologist than I am. I think I've stopped. It's been a few years now since I've been Team Kyle on this one because he's just been so just relentlessly ridiculous. And I do have some empathy for him. Like you said, like his business isn't doing well. And he's been on the show for so long. I'm sure it's gotta suck seeing people like Paige and Hannah blow up. Even like the stuff like Lindsay's doing, like for him to have been there so long and not have that level of success, I'm sure is extra frustrating to him. And I'm sure.
I think that is a huge point that you just made.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it plays a lot in it, and especially with Amanda being such good friends with them and him knowing that they're cheering her on to do her own thing. It's probably also part of why he didn't support her business. Like, God forbid he gets someone at their level of success at home while his business didn't do well. I don't think Kyle could handle that, truly.
Right. And I think that's what we're seeing, to your point, is I think he's feeling lost. And again, he wants it. Like in the past, when he's felt lost, it's always Amanda who helps bring him out of that or who helps help him launch into something else. But Kyle is a grown adult and he needs to start doing those things. But I think to your point, there was one, which, by the way, newbie Mia.
Yeah,
I love
Mia. I like all the newbies so far.
Summer House, I was just going to say that Summer House for me this season, it's hitting so great because all the newbies to me, there's not a bad one in the bunch. I think they are all really emotionally intelligent. lovely, funny, just like they have a lot of really good qualities. But Mia was like, came up with this game, and I was like, ooh, girl, for a newbie, if either production told you to do that or you're just a natural star, baby. Because she was like, let's play this game where we set 2 minutes on the timer and then we talk. And we were able to get some interesting things from Kyle, which was his biggest fear, which I thought was so telling, was his parents not seeing him have children. And you know why I thought that was interesting? Because I'm like, okay, so this man's marriage is falling apart. His business is falling apart. But he's saying that this is his worst fear, is his parents not seeing him have children. So that informed my thinking in terms of like, okay, he clearly is like, he has this idea of how life was supposed to be, and that's not what's going on right now. And that can throw a lot of people off. It's like when we have this vision and then life doesn't click with that. But the other thing was that Mia asked him, what do you think Amanda needs? And he said, honestly, for me to change, and I just don't think I can do that.
There it is,
thinking, there it is. There it is. That's
the thing is, he knows. Like, and I think that's when my empathy ran out for him, is because, like, he knows exactly what he needs to do. She's not beating around the bushes. He just doesn't want to do it and finds every other excuse to blame her for the stuff that he doesn't want to do to change. And the apology dune. The thing that really got me in that is, like you said, like him attacking her character instead of just like, oh, this is like this thing that you could do to change. He says all these horrible things about her. And then also, excuse me, sir, do you not live in that house as well? Like, what do you mean she let it get so bad that you had to have her parents come? Like, you live with her. It's not like she doesn't work, because she works for your company, so she does do work. And you also know she has depression. So why aren't you helping her? Why are you letting it get so bad that you need to call in the parents and then telling us about it? Because I have nothing but sympathy for her in that position. Like, and it sucks. It sucks when your place gets crazy. Like, it's not like I love it. It's just that, like, when I'm in the depths of my depression, it's like, I'll see something on the floor and be like, I should pick that up. But the thought of picking up feels so overwhelming. Just like everything feels so overwhelming. Like, it's hard to describe to people who don't know what it's like, how, like, just existing feels exhausting when you're going through it. Like, just the act of existing feels like it takes everything out of me. So anything I do above breathing is like a triumph, because I've had to push myself to do that, because all I want to do is lie in bed and stare at the ceiling. Like, that is depression. It's not like we're faking it. Like, I want to be up and about. I want to, like, I like days when I can do a million things and have it feel like nothing, not days where I have to, like, do 2 things and be proud of myself so that I don't feel like a totally terrible person. But that's truly how it is. And if you're going to be with someone who lives with that, then you should also figure out a way to help them as well. Not just, oh, well, the place got so dirty because I'm not cleaning up too, so now we have to call your parents so I can make you feel extra bad on top of your depression. Like, that's crazy to me. That whole thing was crazy to me, because you live in that house too. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing everything that you just shared, because you're right. And people who don't know what that feeling is, if you haven't experienced, like, I know there's a lot of people listening to this right now that are feeling very validated. And I think that that point lost everybody. And it shows that Kyle is so over-focused. And this is where the king baby stuff comes in, where he's so over-focused on, he's feeling hurt. He's feeling like his needs aren't met. So everything that he's doing, it's like, well, where's my support? Where's my support? And it's like, well, that's a two-way street, right? That's a two-way street. And also, if your place is such a mess, and to your point, you live there too, well, you have 2 functioning limbs and, no struggles with, well, I do think Kyle maybe has some depression issues, which is, I think, why he probably self-medicates with alcohol, if I'm being honest, which that deserves empathy. But what he's doing and saying, this does not deserve empathy. This deserves, like, someone needs to check him hard. And listen, I hope that has happened, but it's like, he's so busy being like, well, she's not meeting my needs that I'm going to call her parents. And it's like, you should be embarrassed to have to call parents to clean up your own apartment.
For him, exactly.
For him, not for her. Like, where, if, when I'm on the struggle bus with chronic illness or mental health issues, my husband, you know what he does? He does the dishes, he vacuums, he cleans, he does the laundry. And then when I can, I step in and I do those things.
Yeah.
You need a partner who's going to, like, life ebbs and flows in terms of the stuff that happens and mental health issues and all of that. And we need a partner who's going to ebb and flow with us, who's going to, it is a real give and take. And I just think that Amanda deserves so much better. And I mean, I feel like we could talk about this
Oh,
all
I did want
day.
to mention some. Oh no, I was going to say I did want to mention something that you mentioned, which is that he is very much like so focused on meeting his needs that he doesn't, I feel like, step out and see the bigger picture. Because I remember even like the first episode, he was being grumpy because he thought him and Amanda would get to spend more time together. And he was like, I'm gone all of these days of the week. And then I thought like like all of these weekends, and we're only together like the one weekend. And so I don't understand why she's not all about me. Sir, because you're gone all the other days. What are you talking about? Like,
Where can there be intimacy when from January to June or July, you're home 10
right.
days?
And in his mind, she should be like ready to like jump when he's there, like so excited that he's around. And like on some level, I do get it. I'm a long distance girly myself. I love long distance relationships just because I need my space. I want like my time. And then when we're together, I'm also a stage 5 clinger. And so long distance relationships are good for me because like we're together for a short period of time. So my clinginess is okay because it's like, and then I'm sick of it. We're both sick. It's good times. But I feel like in Kyle's mind, that's what it was going to be. It was like, oh, we haven't spent all this time together. Now we have like our summer house time together and it's going to be wonderful. We're going to be so excited all over each other. Instead, Amanda, like your typical person, is like, I've barely seen you. You've barely been around. You've been doing this thing that I hate. I have to deal with all this stuff on my own because you're out doing whatever. No, I don't feel like being lovey-dovey with you right now. Like, I feel like to a lot of us, her reaction makes total sense. But Kyle is so hyper fixated on like, well, I was doing this thing and now I have time for you. Now I have all of this availability for you. Like, why aren't you so excited that now I'm giving you that time? And it's like, because you're her husband, not her long distance boyfriend. Like, you are supposed to be there for her. Like, what?
Right. Amanda, because that's the thing. Like, if that's what works for you, that's great. But that is
Right.
not what Amanda signed
Right.
up for with Kyle. And so what happens is like people change the script and then they're just like, well, why is my partner not on board with this? Well, wasn't enthusiastic consent. You just went and you did this thing, which by the way, like Amanda has literally, because this is the other thing that I've said. It's like with intimacy with, I'll say with heterosexual relationships, like with men and women, what I can say is that in couples therapy, a lot of times you see women who are like, I'm exhausted. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm cleaning the house. I'm making dinners and I'm asking you to help. And then the husband's like, well, I just want to be more intimate. I wish this could be like when we were younger. And it's like, well, sir,
Right.
we've had children. We have jobs. We have responsibilities. And right, like that changes intimacy for adults. But I see this issue so frequently between men and women where the men are like, well, give me sex. And the women are like, well,
Right.
meet my
Like, I'm
needs.
sure if Kyle cleaned the house a little,
And then
he'd probably get some if he cleaned the house a little.
well, and maybe didn't, shame her in front of the entire world for not having a
Sure.
clean house. It's like he's literally doing everything to just like the biggest thing that I see here is she's asking him to do two things: to stop drinking or drink less and to not party and stay out. And those are the only two things he's doing. Kyle was like, hold my lover boy.
But
I'm going to do that
the
extra.
exact thing.
I'm going to go literally, I'm going to make this my literal career. And you're just going to get DMs every night that I'm like sleeping over at random people's homes. And it's like, honey, that is why this is a problem. And he does not he just like, I think he understands it now because here's what's funny. Like before we pivot, one of the last things I'll say is that I noticed he posted something from summer house, like a summer house picture. And the song that he chose on Instagram was Too Late to Apologize by One Republic. And Amanda commented in the comments, she said, Kyle, OMG, the song. And, and it's like, I don't know. And that it just goes to show how sad it is, because it's like, I think he's starting to maybe get it now, and
Yeah.
sometimes it is too late. Sometimes by the time you get it, the hard lesson is learned, and then you lose the
Yep.
thing that you didn't
And the
lose.
thing that gets me though is like, you've been on air for 10 years. Like, you have had this luxury that most people don't have of seeing themselves back, of seeing their behavior, and still even be like, we will watch it together and argue about the same things. And it's like, how have we literally all been watching the same things for 10 years and you have not seen where and how and why you should have growth? Like, that to me is wild. That he has the ability to watch himself and is not seeing the problem.
Nyemade, that's such a good point. I mean, that is literally
It's
such
wild
a
to
good
me.
point. I mean, you have to have willful
Yep.
ignorance. That's what it would have to be. You'd either have to not watch the show like Todd from Salt Lake City. You'd either just have to not watch it or have willful ignorance about like what it is that you're doing. And listen, what I've learned as a therapist is sometimes people are just not ready for change. And what they do is they blame the mirror that's held up in front of their face, and it's still
Right.
not their fault. It's the mirror's fault. And I think Amanda is the
Yeah.
mirror for him. But so we'll see what happens throughout the season. But every episode, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be such a long
But I kind of
season.
like,
It's like,
I like the new people, which I think are fun. Like the girls, I like that there's a friendship
yes.
there with them. And I like the guys. I love that the one guy talks about his anxiety because I do think it is very, yeah, I think it's very
AJ.
easy to look at people, especially people who are successful, and think that they don't have the things that we have. So for him to be like, yes, I'm this skateboarder, I'm this model, but I also like freak out about meeting people. And I remember I had a friend in at work once, and she, like, gorgeous girl, right? And she would talk about how, like, when she was younger, people thought that she was such a bitch or brat. Sorry, I don't know if we can curse on here, but that she okay.
No, you can
All right.
curse. Oh, curse
People thought that
away.
she was
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
bitch because she was so quiet and she hung out with the popular kids. She's like, I just had crazy anxiety. Like, it made me so scared to talk to other people. I could only talk to my friends because it freaked me out. And I'm like, I wonder how many times people have that. And that reminded me of like this. There was this one situation once with like Lena Dunham where she was at like an event and there was like this attractive football player and he basically didn't really pay her any attention. Was and like just not in a mean way, just to whatever way. But she wrote this whole thing about how she was so ignored and how he like thought he was better than her. And then later when he was like, no, I just wasn't paying attention to you, she apologized. But I think people do that a lot. And that's where like not that like boohoo to pretty people, but on the other side of pretty privilege is the fact that people will put like their negativity on you with if you are quiet or if you are not being overly nice and overly friendly, and people just assume that they don't have the problem. So I think it's great that he's like, no, I have anxiety. Like, I see other guys like hang out with girls and like, oh, that's so cool, but like it makes me like freak out because I'm sure if someone saw him out with a bunch of people and his friends are talking to people and he's just standing there, they're probably like, oh, thinks he's so cool. He's this pro person. He does this stuff. He probably thinks he's like the shit. And really, the poor guy's freaking out over there. And I just think that it's like good for us to remember that like the
Right.
outside is not always what's going on the inside. So I really appreciate him being open about that.
Right. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because so what you're describing is a psychological concept called projection. And something I talk about on my Instagram is that the way we feel about other people says more about us than it does
Yes.
about them. Because we're right, Leah Dunham, that was such a good example of she's projecting her own shit onto this guy who's just like living his life. And it's not about Lena Dunham, but in her, like in our world, like most humans are pretty selfish. And so sometimes we tend to think that the world revolves around us, but it doesn't at all. And other people's reactions, what we think of them, it's more
Yeah.
indicative of
Yep.
us for sure. So I think that that's a really good point. But the other thing is that KJ and I actually, we follow each other on Instagram, because when he first came on the show, I wrote about how I love men's mental health matters so much and it gets such
Yeah.
short shrift in society. And so I just like thanked him for sharing his experience, strength, and hope. And I always, love to see men supporting men's mental health. So I have had some conversations with him about that, and he's a really sweet, down to earth person. And I'm just like really grateful for that because that representation does matter. Representation matters,
Yep.
period. And that's a good example, of how that it does matter. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing up KJ because we are KJ fans here at your Bitch
And I
Slappers
also
podcast.
love, and I know we need to pivot, but I just want to add that I also love that other newbie, the hottie Australian. Is his name Ben? Yes.
Oh,
And I love his little flirting with Amanda. And I feel like,
ooh.
especially now that I know it leads to divorce anyways, I'm kind of like, so this Ben flirting, like, hope we get some more of that.
Yes. I mean, Ben is so handsome. His accent is just so good. He's just so, and he seems like
Yeah.
a really sweet person that, by the way, because he does have pretty privilege, he's one of those guys that you would assume that he's like a certain way. But he talked about like how he grew up in a very
Mhm.
religious home where sex was really taboo. And I find it so interesting that he became a model and now he's like this sex on a stick for women at Summer House. But in reality, I think he has a lot of sexual hangups. He blushes when things are talked about. And so it's like Amanda and Kyle, that's been so heavy that we focused on that. But these newbies, they have
They
good
do.
storylines. Like Ben, that's a good storyline. KJ has a great storyline. Levi and Bailey, they have great storylines. But Amanda and Kyle, it's so all encompassing. So I'm glad that we did get to talk about that a little bit because sometimes I feel bad for the other people. I'm like, ooh, you are getting eclipsed by the drama of this. So let's talk about Real Housewives of Potomac, part 1. The general piece that I want to hear about from you is that Stacey got this award, or it was in some magazine for like best performance. And the thing about Potomac for people, I think Potomac is one of the best franchises. I've loved it since day one. And I think that one of the things that is so special about Potomac is they have a real dynamic of authenticity, calling each other on stuff, having a kiki, right? But there's no excuse for not having some real shit here. And then you have Stacey come in and she's getting noticed. But like the one thing that someone had brought up, which we actually caught in the reunion, and I don't know if you caught this, but I wrote about it, which is that Tia said that Stacey talks differently when cameras are down and uses certain colloquialisms that she doesn't use on the show. Because on the show, she talks like a QVC robot. And so I thought that was so interesting. And then we see there, Stacey's talking to Ashley, and cameras are always rolling at the reunion, but it was like during a break. And all of a sudden, Stacey started using certain colloquialisms. Her voice was gravelly and it was deeper. And I was like, there it is. There's the real Stacey. So you have some thoughts on this. Please
buckle up,
tell me what they are.
because I have a lot. No, I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. So the thing of Stacey All is actually kind of fascinating to me because like I originally liked Stacey because I thought she was hilarious. Then I realized she was a raging liar. Her pants are on fire. And one of my major pet peeves is I can't handle liars. Like to me, liars are not only like annoying, they're frightening because once you say something, it's out there. And anyone who wants to believe it will believe it, even if you redact it, even if you're like, oh, that was a lie, I didn't mean it. Here comes all the where there's smoke, there's fire people, which is a liar's best friend, the where there's smoke, there's fire crowd, because you can say anything. And that now is the smoke. So anything you say is out there. So I can't stand it. I find it very dangerous. So like when I watch people watch Stacey, like as a viewer watching entertainment, I think she's hilarious. Like she brings great stuff to the show. She keeps me cracked up. If I think of her purely on an entertainment level, the way I have to think about Heavenly, because I also love Married to Medicine, and Heavenly used to bug the living. I was like, how does anyone deal with this woman? She's just too many things. But then when I switched to think of her as just like the antagonist of the show, she's one of my favorites. I love her. Great character, right? Like she's a great character for the show if I don't think of her being a real life person they have to interact with. And so for me, Stacey is kind of the same way. Like, sure, if I take her in as just a character on a show, she's a wonderful character. Great performance. I think even in the reunion, they said something about like, oh, I'm glad. She said something like, I'm glad you like my QVC performance. And they're like, but that's the problem. It's a performance. And that's what you're still giving us. Like they kind of like called it out. Like she even said it's a performance and it's a performance. But I think like what people forget is this is a reality TV show, right? So it's like, yes, they play it up a little bit for the cameras as people do. It's part of why I love Potomac. Like the way they like giddily gossip about stuff and they tee-hee-hee about things. And like, they're like so open and honest about how they play it up for the cameras. And I love it. Like keep it real, but keep it funny. But I feel like sometimes the viewers forget when they watch the other women lose their mind that like we are watching a show. They are living their life with a liar in front of their face. Like, you know what I mean? Like I understand their frustrations when I see it because if they are sitting there knowing she is this woman who doesn't talk like that, who doesn't think those things, who flat out tells lies, and when she gets called on it, will not acknowledge the lies, I would be losing my mind too. Like, I understand them freaking out because I would be freaking out. It would, and I'm sure people listening, even if you love Stacey, we have all had to deal with a liar at some point who you know they're lying. You know they are lying and they won't fess up and you can't prove it. It's like the most infuriating feeling in the world. And so that's what I think of when I see them all lose their shit with her because I'm like, well, I get it. Like on our end, sure, it's funny. It's great entertainment. Even the whole TJ thing, like, did she pay him? Did she not pay him? But for them, they're like, no, we know, and you're still not admitting it. And so, like, that's my major thing with Stacey is, like, I feel like, it's weird that she won't be herself, but I do like her character. I like the character of Stacey, so keep on it. But I also think, like, people need to give the other women some grace for losing their shit because they would, too, if they had a liar sitting in front of their face.
Yeah, I mean, those are such good points is that I personally, like as a therapist, I find words and language sacred. Mm-hmm. I just do. And I also grew up in very dysfunctional, unhealthy dynamics with people who lied absolutely constantly. So I always am aware, number one, my own personal stuff with this, because I personally cannot stand a liar. Because to me, you cannot trust anything that comes out of their mouth. And then for me, what's the point of that relationship, right? For me. And I think to your point, that is where Giselle and some of these other women are frustrated that the fans are like standing Stacey, but they're like, no, you're asking us to put someone on a pedestal that isn't fitting with the culture of our show, which is be real, be upfront, be honest. Although, you know, Giselle does struggle with that a bit, right? Yeah. I mean, let's be real. I love Giselle, but she's doesn't like to talk about nothing. And I think that that's exactly the point. That is why they get frustrated. And I personally don't get it, but there are fans out there that don't care that she's being inauthentic. And I think our reaction to that says a lot about us. You and I are people who value authenticity, who value honesty. And so we are not people who are going to be interested in the Stacey AI. She's like a robot. She really is. Her movements, the way she smiles, this fake voice she uses. I personally do not gravitate towards people who are behaving in inauthentic ways. I find no entertainment in that. But apparently there's a lot of Bravo folks who do find
I mean, she's funny. Like, before I realized it was fake, I actually didn't mind her being that personality. Like some of the things she would say, I'd be like, oh, I get that. I feel that. Like, before I realized it was a fake personality, I liked the personality of Stacey. And now I still do find some entertainment in it, but like, not in the sense of like thinking that I really like Stacey, because I don't know Stacey. Actually, none of us know Stacey, because apparently Stacey had not been on the screen. Stacey's representative has been on the screen, so...
If I'm being honest, I don't think Stacey knows Stacey. And that's also my beef, is that I can tell when people are kind of doing things that are incongruent with themselves, but sometimes it comes from a place of like, I don't know who I am. Like going back to Kyle for a minute, I think part of Kyle's struggle is like, he doesn't know who's Kyle. Who is Kyle? What does Kyle want? I think that's the same thing with Stacey, that she feels so afraid or whatever it is to just be herself. There's something interesting in that for me psychologically. Like, why doesn't she think being herself is good enough? Or does she fear that people would reject her and then she couldn't, so for me, there's a lot of interesting stuff in this. I'll be interested to see in part 2 what we see, especially, let's talk Karen for a moment, because did you see, there were 2 interviews. There was one with Andy Cohen and then there was one with Sherry Shepherd. Did you see
No,
both
just the
of
one with
those
Andy.
interviews? Okay. So the one with Sherry Shepherd, Sherry asked some really hard-hitting questions because, Andy kind of struggles to do that a little bit, which I understand. He's like friends with these people. It
Yeah.
informs our perspective, right? Sherry Shepherd is like not friends with Karen and she's just like gonna be real about it. But she asked her some really pointed questions and Karen was doing a lot of deflecting, a lot of blaming. But it did seem that she had maybe had some growth since the Andy interview. But my question to you is, how do you feel about Karen now going to be coming back to a reunion where she was in jail all season and she's coming out real hot? She's coming out real hot, which to me is red flags all over the place. But what do you think?
What do I think? I feel like Karen, I have a real issue with rewarding bad behavior. I feel like there are enough good people in this earth that we don't need to reward people who do bad things. And I feel like there's a severe lack of consequences for doing bad things. I think that we've really gotten to the place where everybody knows that, like, you just have to wait it out. No matter how bad the storm is, you just got to wait it out and your fans will find you. People will love you again. I mean, look at what Phaedra did. And now she's back. Right? Like, to me, that was beyond.
Right?
And Phaedra, let me just say this. Phaedra used to be my girl. Like, I loved me some Phaedra. But lying about someone, sexually assaulting someone else is like a hard no for me. And I get that she apologized, but that's a hard no for me for bringing them back.
And can we take a pause here? Because when she came back, I have to tell you, Nyemade, I felt the same way. I used to love Phaedra. I thought she was so funny. And then when that happened, I was like, how can they bring someone back? There are lines that you cross that I think you cannot come back from, and that being one of them. And I do not like, to your point, how Bravo seems to reward bad behavior. And yes, that bothers me. So
no problem. No, but yeah, I just feel like, and it's not just Bravo, it's like everyone does it. And I think, and I'm sensitive to it in general. Like, I'm not one of those like, oh, I can get past the music for that. Like, no, like the man did the bad thing, so I can't get past the music that he wrote about the bad things you know what I mean? And so, like, with Bravo, seeing them reward people for doing bad things, like, I love me some Karen. It's hard. It's not like Karen's is a hard one because it's not like it's a Jen where, like, Jen should never come back because, like, that was truly terrible and awful what she did. I also think drunk driving is truly terrible and awful too. I lost a nephew to it. Like, it's not an excuse, especially when, thank you.
Sorry.
Especially when, like, you have those funds. Like, not that anyone should anyways, but, like, calling a driver is not that hard. There's really no excuse.
There is no excuse, period. End of sentence.
And so, like, for me, like, bringing her back and giving her back that platform, on some end, I understand that whole, like, let's see people rehabilitated and let's see people do those things. But, like, okay, maybe take a break then. Like, maybe do your rehabilitation thing. Speak to some women to, like, live really being sorry before you get to jump right back into being in the spotlight and having, like, all these opinions, all these women's when you weren't even around. And so, I don't know, that's my thing I go back and forth with Karen. Part of me is happy to see her back because she's my girl. But the other part of me is like, let's not, I don't know. I know I sound like a whiny baby. I just feel like there's just no real consequences for people anymore. It's like, no matter what people do, they just need to take a break and then they can come back and people, like, no matter. But I do say, I use this as a point for why you should love yourself and do your own thing, because most of us, I think, are good and decent people. And everyone won't agree with you at all times. But if people can agree with the crazy shit that other people do, they can get over the stuff that you do, which is probably not that bad. Like, whatever you think that, like, this is so cringy or this is so awful or people won't whatever, you'll find your people. If people can find their people doing terrible things, you can find your people doing whatever quirky thing you're into. So, like, I use that as, like, a fuel for myself because I do sometimes get very frustrated with, like, why aren't there consequences? Then I'm like, hey, if they can have people who like them, I can have people who like me for my crazy stuff too. So like the silver lining.
I think there's two issues there, which is that we're living in a world right now where we're seeing a massive miscarriage of justice with, Epstein files and all these other things. And I think for me, that trickles down just to
Mhm.
general life. Like, I understand that Karen is not in that same boat, but what I do need from people, to your point, we're all humans. We're all imperfect. We're all fallible. We all make mistakes. And making mistakes doesn't mean
Right.
you're a bad person. But what I don't care for is coming out, after making mistakes, and then continuing to justify bad behavior, where Karen definitely struggles with that full
Yeah.
accountability piece. And that's still what bothers me. However, that is part of the disease of addiction. Denial and minimization is a huge part of that. And so I try to give her grace and have that humanity. But also there's a part of me that's like, well, I'm not going to support you coming back if you're still trying to say, well, it was the
Mhm.
antidepressants, or, well, it's
Yeah.
like, no, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that, because that's the other thing. Because she's not being clear, I don't like that it's almost stigmatizing medications because she feels those are less acceptable. And so I've been on Lexapro for years. Psychotropic medication is life-saving, and I don't like the weaponizing of that just because she's not
Yeah,
ready to own her shit.
I agree.
I don't like that. But yes, to your point, we're all humans. We all deserve grace. Nobody's perfect. Although there's a couple people on Bravo who I think like cross over into the line of serious pathology that don't deserve a lot of grace, but I'm not going to
Right.
call those people out because
No,
it's
but
not my
it's
job.
true. And I just, oh, no, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we probably know who I'm talking about, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to really.
Well, it's hard because it's like, I feel
I'm
like
not going to
on
really
some
say.
level, it is good to see people go through stuff because that's part of like, it gives us the opportunity to have these conversations as well. Bravo, as always, is like a good window into like the larger scale things of life. I feel, anyways, it's a good microcosm and something that we see a lot in these shows as people change and develop is that like they try to hold on to these friendships that aren't necessarily still friendships. And like I feel like it's okay to say that you've outgrown someone or to realize that someone's morals don't align with yours. And I think, and when I say Bravo is kind of like a microcosm, I feel like we're dealing with this a lot in the real world, especially for me. I grew up around grew up in conservative upstate New York. So I know the leanings of most of the people that I've been around my whole life. And it's never been a huge problem because like when we talk like politics, it's politics, but there are certain things that are like moral and like character worthy,
Yeah. Yeah.
that I feel like it's okay to be like, I don't want to be your friend anymore if you're okay with that. And I feel like sometimes we're looked at as the bad guys for saying we don't want to associate with you. But even going back to Potomac, I think Karen, one of the girls is like, I won't deal with Stacey at all because she's a liar and I don't deal with liars. That's acceptable. Like we watch the show and I feel like a lot of people are like, well, you should, well, maybe, but no, it's okay to say like, I don't agree with this person's morals. I don't agree with how this person lives and I don't want to be friends with them. And I find it very frustrating. So I feel like a lot of times we're painted as the bad guys when we say that because we do have this whole like, people can have redemption and people should be forgiven. And like, yes, they should, but it's also okay. Like if someone were to say like, I am not okay with someone who has had a DUI, especially because it's not the first one. I'm usually a like, we all make mistakes. But the second time it's a choice. Like, yes, addiction is a problem and there's all like these human things, but it is also okay to say, I don't want to associate with someone who does these things. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of times in Bravo world and then also in the real world, like people who put their foot down on not wanting to associate with certain types of people are looked down on. And I don't think that it's okay. Like we all preach that people should have boundaries, but then when people set up boundaries, we tell them they're wrong. And I kind of hate that.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point. And like I am such an advocate for, addiction is a disease, but it's also a disease that needs to be checked, right? Because the one thing is like when, I worked in inpatient rehabilitation centers, and like the one thing is like, yes, these people are deserving of love and empathy and support and understanding. And they also need to understand this behavior is dangerous. You're putting yourself and other people in harm's way. And we need to check that. And that's not okay. And that needs to be changed. So I think there also is a world that, in fairness, the internet lives in black and white. It lives in all or nothing. And in reality, what I've learned as a therapist is that it's mostly shades of gray.
Yeah.
And when you work with people and you work with humans, you start to understand that. And so I understand all of it. I understand the support for Karen. Like you said, that old Tyra, we were rooting for you, which certainly now holds different meaning, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Tyra, we were rooting for you,
That part.
and not anymore for me. But anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of like wrap up the Karen situation. But so in the last couple minutes before we wrap up, one of the things that I wanted to get your thoughts on is that you watch Southern Charm, as do I. And the most recent episode of Southern Charm, it ended with Craig telling Venita to fuck off, which wasn't even the concern that I had with what he said. He told her to fuck off, and then he said, "You don't even exist to me." And so what I wanted to talk about and get your thoughts, as a woman of color, is that I feel that for me, what I'm observing is that Venita, on and off the show, she gets so much smoke that she does not deserve. And I personally never understood why that was. But for me, one of Craig's most concerning comments is, "You don't exist to me." Okay. Venita is the only woman of color on a mostly all white cast in a Southern setting. I just think that it's wild for Craig to say to a woman of color, "You don't exist to me," when Austin and Sally and all these other people have said much more egregious or wild things to Craig. But for some reason, he feels he can say, "Oh, poof, Venita, you don't exist." It just didn't sit right with me. And so I wanted to know, Nyemade, what are your feelings about that?
To be honest, it didn't hit me. I do think there are racial undertones with Venita and her interaction in the cast. And I do find, as myself who grew up as being the lone black face in the sea of white faces, there's this like expectation on us to be like so perfect. And like anytime we step outside of that line, it's like, oh, well, black people, right? Like it's wild because rather than seeing a black person in that space and being like, oh, black people are also these things, they attribute all of your like good qualities to whiteness. Like grew up being called an Oreo, was black on the outside, white on the inside, and it was like a compliment. And back in the day, we all like laughed about it. Now I'm like, that's so not a compliment.
Yeah,
What
no.
the fuck? Like, but, and especially like being older now and looking back on it, and you really do realize that like the minute you step outside of being like the model behavioral person, then you're just feeding into every stereotype in their minds that you have of like, oh, that's just a person being a black person, not just that's just a person having a bad day, doing a thing, having her opinion. So I feel like they really hold Venita to those expectations where she has to like fall in line. And when she doesn't, she's just being like a difficult, like they see it as a quality of her like blackness more than just like her. Cause like Madison has a mouth on her and has always had a mouth on her. And like doesn't get like the same level of, I feel like, animosity that Venita does. But it's like
1,000%.
Right. But it's like
1,000%.
Madison's sassy, but Venita's a problem. They're both sassy. That's why they like each other. Like, it's the same thing. And like, the only reason why I didn't hold Craig's comment as a racial one is because Craig says outrageous things to many people. Like, he just, and I used to be a Craig apologist. I'm not as much as I used to be. Because for a while, he was the least worst of the group of those guys. So it was like Team Craig just out of nobody else to pick
God,
from.
remember those days?
Yeah. Thankfully, we've
Long
had
ago.
a couple slightly more decent guys, so it's like it's not as terrible. But like, because I even think of like the time like Shep told Madison that she was trash. Like those men just say like the most egregious things to the women on that show. Like that's a male problem. I feel like more than a race problem, they definitely have a misogynist problem with that cast and how they feel and think and talk about the women of that group and how they have no qualms in saying the most crazy things to them, like you're trash or like you don't exist to me, like just crazy things to the women. And I found it struck me more on the woman chord than the race chord, even though I do think race overall plays a part in it and how they treat her.
Yeah. And I appreciate that take because I'm not a Black woman. And so, and I certainly have a lens that I see life through. And I just, I'm such an advocate that sometimes I do want to make sure we're looking at things with a critical eye. But that is such a good point that Craig is just like so wild in some of the stuff that
Terrible
he
to all of
says.
them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That his terribleness doesn't discriminate, actually. I do feel sensitive. It's like, don't tell a Black woman that she doesn't exist in your world. Don't do that.
Right.
We're not doing
I
that.
agree.
So, and I appreciate you, sharing your experience, as someone who experienced all that. Because again, it matters. And I think the conversation about it matters too. Nyemade, I want to thank you so much for being here today. Please go check her out at That African Butterfly. But please tell everybody what you're doing and where they can find you. Please just like plug, promote, whatever you got going on, let us know.
I'm doing a lot of my usual, just sprouting off on social media, sharing my days, what I'm up to. I have brought back my mental health series on Sunday nights. Sundays at 7:30 on Feel Good Talk Network. It's called What's on Your Mind. And I talk to different people about what's on their mind. Sometimes it's mental health specific related. Sometimes it's about what's going on with their lives and business and how that impacts their mental health. But it's a good conversation. We just talk for about 30 minutes about life. So if you're free at 7:30 on Sundays, check that out. But yeah, other than that, follow me on Instagram if you want to know what's going on in my life or just see silly dances. I've recently gotten into Threads a lot. Threads feels like a back to return to the happier days of Twitter is kind of what Threads is feeling like lately. Like just laugh, like lots of laughs, lots of scandalous people sharing stuff. So I'm loving that. So I've been sharing those on my page more. And then of course, if you like BTS or K-dramas, head over to TikTok. That's all I talk about over there. So.
All right, you heard it here first, everyone. Please check her out at That African Butterfly. And your mental health series, I will be on in the future. I was on once before. And you have a ton of interesting people on, very interesting conversations, which is what I love about you. You just like to have discussions with people. And I think I think it's amazing. So I just want to thank you so much for being here for this amazing conversation. And for everybody listening, don't forget to check me out at Your Bish Therapist on social media and check out my Patreon. And so for today, we are going to say sending love to you and yours and ta-ta for now.
Ta-ta.
Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.